Daniel Sports Center, we go over a college football game preview and prediction on the 2022 Cure Bowl matchup between the UTSA Roadrunners and the Troy Trojans. Both teams have had great seasons getting to this point. Both teams are champions of their respective conferences. To make for a great matchup. We'll be going over a full game preview and prediction on this matchup here today, starting with their team trends. UTSA beat North Texas 48-27 in the Conference USA Championship game. UTSA was easily the best team in the Conference USA this season. They got up to 11 wins. The next team with the most wins was Western Kentucky, who had 8 overall wins, but North Texas, based on a tiebreaker, got to the conference championship instead of them. North Texas finished out the season before bowl season at 7-6. So yeah, UTSA was far and away the best team in the Conference USA this season. And Troy's kind of in a similar situation. They were definitely the best team in the Sun Belt this season. South Alabama wasn't terribly far behind, but Troy had a solid season, 11-2 overall. They beat Coastal Carolina for the Sun Belt Championship, beat them 45-26. So both teams had dominant wins in their conference championship games. Both teams are ranked barely in the top 25. Both teams 11-2, and both teams have 10-game winning streaks. Wildly enough, heading into this matchup. I mean, so you got two extremely similar teams here. Both teams are great in different ways, but both teams have definitely had similar roads getting to this point. Dominant wins in the conference championship, 10-game winning streak, and both teams 11-2. As for the rankings, UTSA is ranked 25th for bowl season, and Troy is ranked 24th. Games be on Friday, December 16th in Orlando, Florida, the first day of bowl season, and the kickoff is 3 p.m. Eastern. Spreads going Troy by 1. So the Trojans are favored barely in this matchup. Over-under is 54.5, and the FPI disagrees with the spread, going with UTSA 56.3%. This is also the first matchup between UTSA and Troy in all time. Stat comparison for this one: UTSA has 11th points per game in comparison to Troy, who's 79th. And this is what I mean by both teams are great in their own different ways. Troy is a great team on defense. They've been dominant defensively for the majority of the season. UTSA on the other side is a stronger team on offense, even though defensively they have shown some good performances as well. But I mean, you could definitely say the ceiling for the offense is higher with UTSA. Meanwhile, Troy can easily be the better team, and they've got the higher ceiling on defense. If you're looking at the ways that UTSA is good on offense, obviously this team has got an experienced quarterback in Frank Harris. Sounds like he's coming back for his 7th season for UTSA next year. That was just announced recently. But he's an experienced quarterback. He's had a great season, 3,800 yards, 31 touchdowns, over 7 picks. Great season for him. He's quietly having a great year. And the rushing game isn't terrible for UTSA either. Their top rusher is Kavorian Barnes, who's put up over 700 yards of rushing. But they've also got an outstanding receiver in Zachary Franklin, who's put up over 1,100 receiving yards and 14 touchdowns. This is a high-powered offense, and they're very talented defensively. Once again, they're 62nd in points allowed, allowing an average of 27 points a game. And UTSA is on average getting 39 points a game. As for Troy, once again, 79th in points per game, but this team is 7th in points allowed. So one of the top defenses in the country here, only allowing an average of 18 points a game. Offensively, they're getting 26 on average. So, I mean, yeah, once again, Troy is and has been the better team on defense this season. Meanwhile, UTSA has been on offense. But I will say this, we'll get into this in a second here as well, but, I mean, Troy, this team has really come around offensively their past 3 games. I mean, they put up 34 on Louisiana Monroe, put up 48 on Arkansas State, and then 45 on Coastal Carolina in the conference championship. So something to keep in mind there. This offense has improved over the course of the season. They are better in the passing game than the rushing game, even though they actually do have a pretty talented running back in Kamani Vital. Sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, but he's put up over 1,000 yards on the season, 9 touchdowns. He's had a great year for the Trojans, and the starting quarterback Gunnar Watson has put up 2,700 yards, 13 touchdowns, over 10 picks. So his touchdown interception ratio isn't very good, but once again, defensively is really where Troy shines. Recent matchups: UTSA, they beat North Texas 48-27. That was in the conference championship. They beat UTEP in the last game of the regular season, 34-31. Close win, but at least they got the win. They beat Rice 41-7, beat Louisiana Tech 51-7. 2 dominant wins there and they also beat UAB in double overtime 44-38. As for Troy, this team beat Coastal Carolina 45-26, beat Arkansas State 48-19, beat Louisiana Monroe 34-16, beat Army in a low-scoring one 10-9, and they also beat Louisiana 23-17. So, I mean, offensively, this team they've not been bad down the stretch. Once again, especially the past 3 games, this team has scored above 34, and they scored 40 in their last 2, and you could say 2 of the most important games of the season there. But there have been a couple of times where Troy's only put up like 10 to 15 points. They also beat South Alabama, who was the next best team you could say in the Sun Belt. Coastal Carolina was also up there, but South Alabama was the only other team to finish out above 10 wins. South Alabama, they beat them 10-6. That was definitely an impressive win there for Troy going up against South Alabama. That's the one loss that South Alabama has in conference this season. So, I mean, yeah, Troy down the stretch, they have been, you could say, the better team, even though UTSA does have, once again, I would definitely say a higher ceiling on offense. Your key points, UTSA, this team is known for being a strong offensive team. They've got key experience. That's something, too. I mean, Troy's got experience, but UTSA especially has got that experience, and you could say that it is an advantage for them. Frank Harris, their quarterback, obviously has got some great experience, and they're going to have him coming back next year again for his, I think it will be his 7th season of college football. But yeah, clearly UTSA was the best team in the Conference USA this season. As for Troy, this team is known for being a strong defensive team. Offense has continued to improve, and both losses came in competitive games. If you look at the losses for Troy, they lost to Ole Miss, who is a really talented team, one of the best teams in the SEC. Lost to them 20-10, so it wasn't a total blowout, especially considering they had to go on the road. And they also lost to App State by 4 back on September 17th. Those are the only 2 losses for Troy. And if you compare that with UTSA's losses, they lost to Houston back in week 1. In retrospect, that's a game that I think UTSA should have won, but at the time, Houston was looking like a really good team going into the season, considering they had a great 2021 season, but they lost that game also in triple overtime, so that was a very competitive game. They did get beat up by Texas in a way, 41-20, lost that game by 3 touchdowns. So this team was 1-2 at one point. Both teams were, I think, 1-2 to start off the season. Yeah, both teams have had really similar seasons, and both teams obviously have got 10-game winning streaks heading into this matchup. Both teams are hot and ranked in the top 25. Let's get to the prediction here for UTSA and Troy coming up here in the Cure Bowl. And I'm going to be going with Troy to win this one, 31-23. This was a tough one to predict. You got 2 teams that are great in their own ways, but both teams are hot, that's for sure. But looking at Troy and how they've been playing, this team has really improved on offense down the stretch. Defensively for UTSA, they've had a couple of impressive performances as well down the stretch, but I just feel like defense in the end is what's going to be beneficial for Troy, and I feel like Troy's defense is going to be able to contain UTSA in a way. I do think UTSA is able to score some points, but in the end, give me Troy to win this one 31-23. So I'll say 55% towards Troy, over under 54.5. Give me the under for this one. I will say this, if you're picking the over under, if you're picking UTSA to win this game, definitely take the over. I think that's a pretty safe bet if you think UTSA is going to win this one. As for Troy, if you think Troy is going to win this one, you could honestly go either way. Personally, I'm going to be taking the under because Troy is a stronger team on defense. And so you could say taking the under with Troy winning is maybe a safer bet. But definitely, if you think UTSA is going to win, there's a good chance they score upwards of 30, maybe even 40 points. And that's especially if their offense can get going. So in that case, I would take the over, but I do have Troy covering the spread. It's currently 1 point towards Troy. So basically, whoever you're picking to win this game right now, you've got covering the spread as well. But that's going to put it up for today. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below on this bowl matchup, and I appreciate you guys watching as always. Stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. Catch you on the next one.